Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to my first ever ASMR astrophotography editing session in Pixinsight. This is not a tutorial. It's an unscripted video of me talking with my best ASMR voice while I drink my coffee on a nice Saturday morning and process some astrophotography. So if that sounds interesting to you, welcome. Happy to be your second monitor content while you do some editing. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe we'll come up with a cool image. Maybe we won't. Either way, we'll have a good time. This data we're looking at here is an HA LRGB data shot using my DBS 150 3D printed astrograph from the remote observatory Astro Peak in southern Utah. This is known as the Gecko Nebula. It is I don't know if you would call this a dark nebula, because it's not dark, but it's like a light, it's one of those light dusty nebula. So it's not an emission nebula. However, there is some background HA emission. And I love how different it is. We can see some of the nebula structure here in the HA, but there's really just this band of HA which is completely independent of the dust itself. So there's sort of a background rainbow effect. In fact, let me show you the final processed image. Actually, this was the final processed image from yesterday. So I have more data to add to it. And we're going to play with a couple of different editing techniques. So here's what I came up with yesterday. This was about 38 and a half hours of total image integration time, but now I'm up to about 42 hours. So I added about 4 hours of luminance data last night to try to bring out the dust structure here. I like this image. It's pretty cool. There's some background galaxies which are neat to see, but I don't like this magenta hue down here, this magenta area. So we're going to try to get rid of that in this next version of processing. So this is kind of my benchmark to go at with this new session. So LRGB HA or HA LRGB. Where do we start? Well, I'm going to start with the RGB. And with my previous image processing on this, I had a bit of a green gradient. So I'm going to use Graxpert to subtract the background on, to do a background subtraction on just the green image. And this is based off of processing this data a couple of other times. And okay, so we'll go with that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do channel combination and get my color image. And so we'll add the G. And I like to rename my individual color channels by their actual name so they're easy to find. And we need the B, RGB. Okay. I also like to try to keep my Pixinsight workspace organized. I think a nice, tidy, organized workspace is a sign of a good craftsperson. Okay, I'm going to rename this to I, and let's do an unlinked auto stretch. Looks pretty good. And then I can't work on images if they're upside down in my brain. Now, this is the orientation that I see when I think of this object. So that is pretty good. Okay, there is my eye. And then I have my luminance and my HA. I'm going to go ahead and just rotate these two. And then we'll put them away and we'll come back to them. And I should be done with channel combination. Back to my RGB image. We need to do color calibration. You can see the background still looks green. And for that, I will use spectrophotometric color calibration. But first, we must have an astrometric solution. So we use the image solver script. It pulls in the metadata from my files, so it knows where to look, and it will solve. And this gives me a nice chance to sip some more nice coffee. And there we go. You can see it has coordinates. It knows where it's looking. And next I will generate a preview of background. Just a little bit here. Just a little bit of background over there. Just a happy little background. And in spectrophotometric color calibration, I set the region of interest to that preview. And then hit apply. Okay, looks ugly, but don't worry, it's just because the stretch has to be redone, and there we go. So now this is looking like the right colors. You can see some of the HA comes through here in the RGB image, mostly in the red filter, obviously. And that looks pretty good. Maybe this does have some of the magenta down here, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's supposed to be there. Please excuse my sniffles. If you hear sniffles, I tend to have hay fever in the morning. Okay, next up, we want to combine the HA. We'll get the HA into the RGB image kind of right away. But I don't want to include the HA stars. So I will use Star Exterminator, and we will exterminate the stars. I drink my coffee in the mornings when I have time. Usually don't have time before work, but on a weekend, I like to drink my coffee made from a French press. And I like a nice quality coffee, but I'm not too picky. I'll drink pretty much anything. Only black. Okay, HA stars are removed, and I don't need those. I will close that. And then I'll minimize my HA. And now to combine the HA, I use a script from the Toolbox suite called Combine HA with RGB. If you don't have, I'm going to use a lot of scripts. I already did use one. But the Toolbox suite of scripts, if you Google, search, or DuckDuckGo, rather, I guess we should say now. No, we're DuckDuckGo searching for Pixinsight Toolbox scripts. You'll find the repository to install these great scripts. Combine HA with RGB. This makes it really simple. And you'll see with this image, it's very simple. So I select my RGB image, which I titled I, and my H-alpha image, which I titled HA, and I select it, and right away, look at that. Now we have some nice red in there. I'm going to increase the amount. I think I'm going to increase the amount to 4. That may be a bit intense. No, I think that's pretty good. We'll go with that. I think that's what I did before. We'll do that again. Now look at that. We have some nice red in there. All right. The next step, Blur Exterminator. We'll turn this sort of fuzzy looking image into a beautiful sharp image. And I'm pretty sure I'm applying the default Blur Exterminator settings, and those work great on my images. And look at that. Look at how much sharper the stars look. Very magical. Now at this point, we want to sort of work on the luminance and the RGB, well, in this case, HARGB image in tandem. And now I'm noticing this magenta section down here that I didn't like before. And so I wonder if that is coming in with the combined HA with RGB image, and maybe we can tweak that a little bit. So I'm going to undo. Actually, no. That is in the RGB image. So, yeah, I can see it down here. Maybe that's natural. Maybe that's kind of supposed to be like that. I think we'll leave it. We'll leave it, and we'll have a little bit of different color in there. Maybe the red from the HA is kind of combining with this dust in here to create a sort of purple. Or maybe I need more RGB data. Either way, let's blur exterminate the luminance. While I refill my coffee from my nice stainless steel French press. A couple of years ago, actually, let me back up. That blur exterminator process went very fast. Also going to remove the stars. A couple of years ago, I went down to Micro Center. I can't remember what I was looking for. I went to buy something cheap, and they had 4090 NVIDIA RTX 4090 graphics cards in stock. And I kind of splurged and bought one. I can't remember what it was at the time, but it was a lot of money. And I thought, well, this is maybe not a very responsible purchase. But seeing as how graphics card prices are these days, that a 5090s are selling for almost $5,000, it was a very good purchase. Sorry to anybody who's in the market for computer hardware these days. Look at all the background galaxies in the luminance image when I remove the stars. This is kind of incredible. It kind of blows me away that we see galaxies through the dust. Look at these little guys up here. So many galaxies, and the dust looks really cool. Very, lots of cool detail in there. That's neat. Okay. We have blur exterminated both images. I removed the stars from the luminance, and now I will remove the stars from the RGB image. So yeah, these RC Astro plugins, blur exterminator, star exterminator, noise exterminator, take advantage of the CUDA cores in an NVIDIA RTX graphics card, which is why these processes go so quickly. I'm going to rename my extracted stars to S, and I will minimize that, and we'll come back to those at the end. Now with the stars removed, I will do noise exterminator, but I'm going to change my settings. I've been doing less noise exterminator lately, and I think I'm finding just reducing the denoise HF to 0.85 and the denoise LF to 0.8. I think I've been finding with my images from Astropeak from the dark sky that the noise floor is already pretty low. And if I add too much noise exterminator, I get a kind of excessively unnatural look. Versus my images that I've shot from the light pollution, I use more noise exterminator. Either that or maybe my tastes have just changed a bit. So here's the denoised image. I'll give you before and after. The background's still pretty noisy. A lot of chrominance noise in here, which is the multicolored pixels you see. This is chrominance noise. Rather off-putting of noise, but noise exterminator does a really good job of removing that. But that does still look like kind of a lot of noise. So I think maybe I need to run more RGB data. It's only around 3.5 to 4 hours of each RGB filter. So maybe we need to run more. I close noise exterminator, but I still need it. So I work on the luminance and the RGB image in tandem here. I don't really like doing the LRGB combination workflows. I don't really like them, but I'm trying something different today. We'll see if maybe that changes my mind. So that's pretty good. That looks really nice. Both of them look really nice. So at this point, I am ready to take them nonlinear. And I'm just going to stick with the auto stretch values, the auto stretch formula for now, because I want both images to be stretched kind of equally. So we'll let the screen transfer function do that. I guess I don't know if that really even is the case. But now we will combine them into LRGB. And so I have a new script, new to me, called Image Blend. And this script was shown by the very excellent astrophotographer Adam Block. He's one of the guys you can definitely listen to. Oh, that's unfortunate. I can't drag. Oh, okay. Well, the script UI needs a little bit of work. A little bit of work. Okay, base image is I. There's my base image. My blend image is L. And then the blend parameters, we're supposed to change this to color. Oh, color. This was written by a British guy, it seems. Okay, so that's interesting. That seemed to not do anything. We can set the preview dimensions here. Whoa, what's going on there? That was weird. Filter type. No, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing. I must be missing something. Unless the let me see. He had Maybe I'll cut this part of the video out. Maybe not. This is the fun of an unscripted video. Here we have this was the video I watched earlier. So I want to see what settings. So his base image. Oh, okay. So his base image is the luminance. Aha. I got those backwards. So we will change that. Base image luminance and the blend image the eye. Okay. I don't see. Oh, I guess we can turn a preview on and off. Oh, that doesn't really do anything. We can change the black point. Oh, okay. Oh, not nearly that much. Okay. Yeah, that's too much. So this gives you a certain level of control. Let's just hit the button on that. I don't like that I can't zoom in here. Oh, it created a new image. Oh, I guess there's a button that says create a new image. That's probably okay, because then we can compare. And now we can use Pixinsight's cool linking to zoom in, sort of zoom around here. And what do we think? Do we see much difference? Well, I certainly see more. Those little background galaxies are all popping out now. That's cool. The dust itself, I guess maybe there's more contrast. Oh yeah, there's certainly more contrast. And yeah, actually, as I zoom in, we have a lot more well-defined detail in the dust here. So that definitely did something. Much more well-defined detail in the dust. And more defined detail. I'm blown away by how much detail we see in these teeny tiny galaxies with a 6-inch mirror. There's spiral structure in this galaxy that we can see in such a tiny mirror. That is amazing to me. See some other dusty areas here. Here, I think we can definitely see, maybe not too much more detail, but definitely better signal to noise ratio. Here there's kind of chrominance noise. And here, much smoother looking. Again, same thing over here, much nicer looking. How about in this H alpha region? I want to make sure that the luminance data didn't overpower or make my nice red H alpha look bad. But no, I think we're still look really good. Well, okay. So it's kind of subtle, that difference there. Let's try. This was my base image. I'm going to try LRGB combination. And I turn off RGB. And I'm going to drag the L. This is what I did on the previous image. And now we can do before and after. That's before and that's after. And so now we can compare the script, what the script generated versus what the LRGB combination tool generated. So now let's look at those other parts we were just looking at. Maybe a bit different coloration. Look at some of these details in the wispiness here. I think I have better. I think the script gave me a bit better contrast, a bit better color. Sort of a nicer, even sort of brown dust here, whereas maybe there's more kind of noise over here. I think definitely better contrast. And maybe that was really just because of that black point adjustment that we made. How about down here? Kind of similar. Maybe better contrast again. Okay, well, overall, I think better. I'm going to save this image, though. I'm going to call this 1 or owner because I missed the E key. And we'll just put that away. And we'll rename this one to I. This will be my image that I work with now. And we'll hide the LRGB. Looking pretty nice. At this point, pretty much once I'm done nonlinear stretching and merging, stuff like that, I like to bring the stars back into play. And my stars are still nonlinear. And so, or excuse me, my stars are still linear. To make them nonlinear, I use Agena Astro's star stretch script. And here, I think I want values of 3.5 and 1.5. And now we have stars. And then to combine the stars, I have this Pixinsight script, very simple, pixel math, to combine the stars. And I and S, I being the main image and S being the stars. That's why I named my main image I. So I just drag that on there. And now I have stars. I like to do this at this point to get an idea of what the overall image will look like before I do a lot more work on the background or on the image itself. And honestly, that alone right there is pretty nice. Not too bad. Definitely needs more contrast though. This was my base image from yesterday. So we probably want to try to get something kind of similar. Some people do these really bright backgrounds. I think that's too bright. I want my space to look like space. It shouldn't be totally black, but I want it to be more black than that. Let's go ahead and remove the stars for now, and we'll continue to work on the image and try to bring out some more detail in the nebula itself and add contrast, maybe a bit of saturation, although it's already pretty well saturated. So there's just a few more steps. I will do my range selection trick here. Just select the brighter areas. I really just want most of the nebula structure itself, the dusty structure itself. And we'll do a little bit of fuzziness and a little bit of smoothness. That's probably pretty good. So now I have my range mask. Control K to hide the mask. And I use local histogram equalization. And this brings out details. This is always way too much. So we bring it down maybe about 0.25. And turn it off. Turn it on. Maybe we'll bring it up a bit more. Maybe let's get a little bit more aggressive. We really want that dust to kind of pop out. You can see that's the before and that's the after. And this bright area here really jumps out, which I don't know what the heck that is. It's a cool reflection nebula type situation. And the detail around the, I don't know, the point, the crown, the head of the gecko, that really jumps out. And that looks pretty good. Let's go with that. I'll apply that value. Okay. We don't need the mask anymore. And I'm done with those tools. Then the last thing really is just some curves. So we want to add some contrast. And I learned a trick. If you click in the image, click and drag over there in the curves transformation window, it shows you what you're clicking on, what area of the image. So right there is kind of an area where I don't want that to get any darker. So I'll add a control point there. If anything, maybe I want that a little bit brighter. But I don't want to make everything too bright. So I'll add another point here and make sure the highlights don't get out of control. Well, that makes the overall image a lot brighter. But then the background, stuff up here, this is like the space. That's supposed to be black. I mean, not black, but dark. And that was right in around here. So I'll bring this down. Kind of you want a nice gentle curve. And let's see what that looks like. That's the after. That's the before. That's the after. Before and after. A lot of contrast. I might want more contrast, but we're going to stick with that for now. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to compare that to my previous image. This is my, maybe I had too much contrast in the previous image. Now let's do at least a little bit more. Not with the same settings though. Now we want to kind of hold. We don't want to make this any brighter. So we want to find the dark areas of the image. And we want to just make those darker. So I'll add a couple of points to control the midtones and the highlights. And I'll just bring the background down. Now we get a lot more contrast. And by nature of adding contrast, you get saturation, or the illusion of saturation. And that's pretty good. And it seems like with this pass, I have a lot more magenta in here. I was hoping for less, but now I have more. Well, that's interesting. Bring the stars back in and take a look at what we have. That is interesting. So I'm very happy with how the dust is looking, especially up here. What the heck is going on here? Is this caused by this star? There's like a star in there. I think this is just a reflection nebula, a bright star in the middle of that dust there. How cool. So I definitely still have this magenta area down here. This is my previous image, and this is this one, the new one. There's significantly more of it. Maybe that's, yeah, and it extends out over to here. That's interesting. One thing we can do is look for a reference image on Astrobin. I oftentimes will search for reference images to see what other people are getting and or wider field images to get an idea of what others are seeing. This image has some magenta down here, some of that red color. With such a narrow field of view on my telescope, it can be hard to tell if I'm seeing background gradients or if those are supposed to be there. I think this is a pretty good reference image. Zoomed out, there's a lot of really cool detail and dust that I'm missing here. And comparing to my image, there definitely is red back there. Look at that. More faint HA. And in mine, you can see we have, that's like looking purple. So that makes me think we have some green gradients in there that shouldn't be there. Does red and green make purple? What two colors make purple? Red and blue. Aha. Ah. So perhaps I need to start all over again by subtracting blue gradients from my blue image. I don't really want to do all that. That's the problem with background gradients, is they start all the way from the beginning. Let me remove the stars. We'll try a trick. If I invert the image, and then I use SCNR to remove the green, and then invert the image again. So that completely murders my red. But look, it fixed that gradient. So, what a conundrum. The red looks awful. But the dust, that's what I really want the dust to look like. So that's very tricky to remove this purple. I think I need to start over and try a blue, removing that, doing whatever I can to remove the blue. The blue that's combining with the red to create that purple. Because based on this reference image that I see, that I really like, that's what I need to do. But I won't do that right now. I'll end this video here. This was a good experience, good processing, a very cool looking image, but I want to make it better. The great thing about having this data is you can work with it endlessly, and every time you process, you get a little bit something different. You learn something along the way. But the trickiest part, and perhaps the most frustrating to me with these, is that I'm pretty sure this color cast here, this purple hue, is due to a gradient. And gradients are removed in the very, very first step. But sometimes you don't notice them until you get to the last step. So you have to start over from the beginning. That's a bit frustrating. I wish Pixinsight had a non-destructive history type editing mode, where I could just open up a timeline. And I could go all the way back to step 1 and make a change to step 1, and then it would rebuild the image based on those changes. That's how CAD software works. That's how I'm used to working with my CAD designs. You can go back and edit a process earlier on, and it will update the whole model. Sometimes it breaks the model because you edit features that older features were, or newer features were relying on older features. And if you remove those go away. But it gives you a lot more power along the way. And we don't have that here. So I'm going to start over, and I'm going to see if I can get something better. Okay, well, I'm back, and I'm pretty sure I figured out the issue. Here was the before. You can see this is after blur exterminating and combining the HA, and you can see the purple down here. It's not super obvious before it's stretched and all that, but it's definitely there. And now here's my latest version, and look at that, pretty much entirely gone. The problem was I did that Graxpert gradient subtraction on the green. And that was kind of a leftover idea in my head. I'll take this image back to the beginning, and I'll show you why I thought I needed to do that. It looks like there's some green. There's definitely some green in the background here. And I thought that was maybe a little bit of gradient. And one of the advantages of shooting from very dark skies, Bordeaux 1 skies, is you generally have no gradients. However, this object was a bit low on the horizon when I started imaging it at the beginning of the night. And so I figured, maybe there's a little bit of green gradient. So I did the background subtraction on the green channel. And so that generated less green, means you had more red and blue. Thus you had the magenta down here. But it turns out that was really just needed the background neutralization. And that comes along with the spectrophotometric color calibration. So, oops, let me bring that back to the, yeah.
So now we can see here, very magenta, and here, not very magenta. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat all my processing steps. Should go a bit quicker now that I know really what I'm doing, and then I'll get back to you. And we're back. And here we go. Now I think I've got an image that I'm really starting to be proud of. The dust here is really starting to look nice, and that magenta gradient is mostly gone. Maybe there's a hint of it, but I think it kind of works here as, blending the H alpha with the dust, right? So maybe a little bit of magenta look is natural. It does look good. And when I compare it to this reference image that I was looking at, maybe this is a bit over-processed for my taste. This dust here is extremely bright compared to the surroundings, which is good if you want to see detail. But I maybe want to go for something that's, maybe a little bit more natural, which is always kind of a funny term to use when we talk about astrophotography. But here's my latest version. And this was what we came up with before. So you can see the magenta gradient here looks pretty bad, honestly. And here, much, much better. So it was just a poor use of background extraction. And actually, I'm kind of relieved because not having to do background extraction, rely on background extraction, makes imaging or processing generally much easier. And that's what you get. One of the things that you get when you put your telescope in a remote observatory like at Astropeak. So this was my previous process. Again, that magenta curve or that magenta area. And the dust is kind of not very well defined. Look at how much better the dust looks here. I'm pretty happy with that. I should say I'm very happy with that. I still think I want to get more RGB data, and maybe that'll clean up the background a bit, rely a bit less on the background subtraction. Or not, I don't know. Maybe I can call this image good and be happy with it. And at 42 hours of integration time, maybe that's enough. And I could move on to another target. I don't know. I guess I have time to figure that out. But in any case, I'm very pleased with this image. It's very cool. This is the kind of thing that I really wanted to shoot from the dark skies, from a remote observatory, where it takes a lot of integration time from the dark skies to bring out this dust stuff here. This dust I don't think I would see at all from the light pollution because it's a broadband signal. And I just don't get out camping enough to get 42 hours of integration time. So thank you very much to Nate at Astropeak, astropeak.space. And if you guys are interested, they're building another building. You can get your telescope in there, get your reservation in. I'm very pleased with this image. Thanks so much for watching. And let's do this again.